Well, let's get some analysis now with Nader Hashemi, who's an associate professor of Middle East politics at Georgetown University. Good to have you back with us, Professor. This, of course, is Iran's first direct attack on Israel. Before now, we've seen several of Iran's proxies act not only in this conflict, but in conflicts past as well. Hezbollah in Lebanon, for example, has been fighting Israeli security forces since the October 7th attack. We've also seen the Iran-linked Houthis of Yemen attacking Israeli-linked shipping in the Red Sea. What involvement do Iran's proxies play at this point in the wake of this Iranian attack on Israel?
I think that remains to be seen. I suspect Iran is going to wait and see how Israel is going to respond to the attacks that happened this evening. And then if Israel does try to escalate the situation, then I think Iran is going to call on its proxies and allies in the region to participate in a further response. So this is where, we are gradually, but it's seemingly consistently moving up the escalatory ladder, heading toward a broader regional war. Of course, in the backdrop, from Iran's perspective, they have Hezbollah, which is well armed and has a lot of missiles. And if things get out of control, they can open up a new front against Israel. I think Israel knows that. So we are in a very dangerous situation here. I think the events that precipitated this on April the 1st, largely, in my view, an attempt by Benjamin Netanyahu to expand the war because he's losing the war in Gaza. He set a trap effectively that Iran has walked into, and now Israel, I suspect, is going to respond, and they're going to ask for American support. The big question and unknown here is, will the United States participate in a retaliatory strike against Iran? I think the Biden administration is torn between wanting to provide those, quote, ironclad guarantees to Israeli security on the one hand, and at the second, they're also being, I think, pulled by their deep desire to avoid a major escalation of a Middle Eastern war, especially in the context of an American presidential election. So we are in very dangerous new territory, and we're all waiting to see what happens next.
We know soon after Iran's attack was launched on Israel, the permanent mission of Iran to the United Nations released a statement of its own saying that this attack could be considered concluded, but if Israel were to launch further attacks on Iran, its response would be more severe. So it seems that for now, Tehran is signaling that this is the end of their retaliation towards Israel. Israel, for its part, is also downplaying the impact that this Iranian attack has had on Israel itself. Do you think both countries are at this point are really looking to just end things as they are at the moment, that they're not looking for a more broader regional conflict at this stage?
I think that applies to Iran. I think Iran wanted to show that it had capabilities to respond to the April 1st attack. And it should be pointed out that it's not just the April 1st attack. Since October the 7th, Iran has lost, prior to April the 1st, 18 high-ranking members of its elite Quds force in Israeli attacks. Over 200 members of Hezbollah have been killed in Israeli shelling and counter-border attacks. Not to mention other Iranian allies have also been targeted by Israel since the October 7th crisis began. So I suspect from Iran's perspective, they are trying to send a message that, look, we had to show that we have deterrence capacity, and now they want to stop at this point and see what the reaction is. So the ball is very much in Israel's court. On the Israeli side, Benjamin Netanyahu is in a very difficult situation militarily in Gaza. I think he's losing the war. He's been unable to sort of capture the leadership of Hamas, and it's unclear how that war is going to end, notwithstanding the enveloping genocidal context that encapsulates what's happening in Gaza. But politically, also within Israel, his days are numbered because he was the prime minister on October the 7th. He has outstanding court cases. The only way Netanyahu survives politically is by trying to do exactly what I think he is attempting to do, and that is to goad Iran into a war. That's why Israel, engaged in this, reckless, provocative attack on April the 1st that killed those senior Iranian generals in Damascus, raising the political temperature and putting Iran in a situation where it had to, respond to establish quote unquote deterrence capacity in the hope to send a message to Israel that these types of attacks that we saw on April the 1st in Damascus will not be tolerated. But of course, it's a risky game of sort of, of calculation and perhaps miscalculation. So if Israel decides to do what it said it would do, if its territory was struck, that it would respond, well, then we are moving up that escalatory ladder that I referred to a moment ago with no end in sight. So these are dangerous times for everyone who cares about, peace and security in the Middle East.
These events are happening, of course, in the context of the ongoing war in Gaza. We know that Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu is failing in his objective to secure the release of the surviving hostages that are being held in Gaza. That's angering a growing number of Israelis who are continuing to protest against his leadership and his handling of this war. How might this Iranian attack affect the war going forward?
Well, there's a famous political statement that says behind every crisis is an opportunity. And I suspect Israel is going to try and take advantage of this opportunity to stage its promised invasion of Rafah, where more than half the population from the Gaza Strip are sheltering, and deal once and for all with the problem of Gaza that Israel has long sort of sought to solve. So this is something that does not bode well for what's remaining of Gaza, particularly the people there. This is a golden opportunity while the world is focused on Iranian behavior in the region to get rid of the remaining population of Gaza. There's been, right from the beginning of the October 7th crisis, an open discussion in Israel that the way to solve the problem in Gaza is to expel the population, to transfer them into the Sinai, or remove them in some other way. So this is something that I think we all have to be watching for. And I'm very fearful that that actually might be very much in the works right now, particularly as this back and forth between Israel and Iran continues. And it looks like it'll continue with the world focused on that dimension of Middle East politics. Everyone is going to take their eye off of what's happening in Gaza and what's happening particularly in Rafah. And I suspect that very much is in the cards here. Whether Israel can pull it off, remains to be seen. And a lot of this is deeply dependent on what the White House decides to do. And I suspect they're struggling to figure out a policy right now. But based on past behavior, I have no confidence that Joe Biden is going to provide the type of leadership that's needed to de-escalate this crisis. In many ways, we are facing this crisis because of the colossal failure of Joe Biden's, leadership in the Middle East, particularly with respect to trying reining in or establishing clear red lines for Israel in terms of, what it could be doing or should be doing. Biden should have condemned or at least privately sent a message to Israel after the April 1st attack that this has jeopardized our interests in the region. And to my knowledge, he has not done that. And that's produced the situation that we're talking about today.
Okay, Nader Hashemi, really appreciate your analysis. Thank you so much again for joining us.